Welcome to Sewing Out Loud, the official podcast of Zede Sewing Studio. Here are your hosts, Zede and Mallory.
Sewing Out Loud. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mallory Donahue.
And I'm Zede Donahue.
And today we're just going to do a little brain dump of stuff that we...
What a nice term.
Isn't that nice?
Visually that turned me on, yeah.
Stuff that you all should hear Zede talking outside the podcast.
I'm absolutely eloquent.
Yes. Things that we use for sewing that are not originally meant for sewing.
They're not sewing specific.
Not sewing specific. Maybe you wouldn't find them in your sewing store necessarily, except, on our sewing store online.
Well, the one thing that we use, that was not sewing specific is the medical
tracing
exam paper. It's for the exam table, right? It was called medical exam paper, and we used to actually at the store. I used to order it from a medical supply company.
Yeah,
and then of course all of the notions companies. Got onto the fact that the stores were buying something not from them.
Yeah.
And then finally they started stocking it.
Yeah, so it's gone a little mainstream now.
Right.
That tracing paper.
Well, what I'm talking about is 15, 20 years ago when we were buying it from the medical companies.
So we may mention a few things that now have gone mainstream, but Zede was one of the pioneers.
But you said was not originally used.
A lot of things, medical. That seems to be
because they're
trend.
Instruments,
mm-hmm.
like the seam ripper.
Yeah,
that's a scalpel. Everybody,
scalpel, seam ripper.
That is a scalpel.
All the nurses are like, "What size blade is that? I'll steal those from work."
Yeah.
Hemostats
or pickups or what? Yeah. Hemostats.
Talk about hemostats. Yeah,
hemostats are the things that they look like pliers, but they're really a clamp. And of course, you can clamp them down. There's some way of securing them. Hemostat means to stop blood.
Yeah. So how do you use those in the medical field?
Well, you put them on that wildly bleeding vessel, and you clamp it off. Okay. And they're used for other things too, to hold other things.
So they are though.
But hemostat hemo means blood, and stat means to stop or make stasis.
Right.
So they were to stop bleeders during surgery.
So they really are a clamp.
They are a clamp, yes.
The way I've used hemostats the most often in sewing is to get a needle through something that's difficult to get it through.
And actually,
how do you use it?
Actually, there are things called needle holders that aren't hemostats. And needle holders look like hemostats, only they've got a much, much shorter clamping area. They're tinier. So if you see those little tiny things, those sometimes are referred to as needle holders, and those will be in a suture kit.
And you're saying needle holder,
right?
In the medical sense as well, not like
right. No, because you have to. And I don't know if anybody has seen sutures or how they come packaged or anything, but they're on a curved needle. So you take that hemostat or needle holder, right? Yeah. And you hold on to the end of that, because of course it's much easier than holding it with your hand, and your hand won't slip, and you've got gloves on and all that. So that needle holder allows you to be much more precise with putting that that curved needle through the tissue.
So tell me about one time you've used hemostats. I have an example from me. If you don't have...
Well, I used one last week to pull a drawstring back through your dad's swim pants.
Oh, well, that's a good use for it.
I just used it. I use it constantly.
Yeah.
He's constantly, this went back, I went in the laundry,
I remember using it to bead a pair of shoes.
Yes, I've done that too.
Did you bead Lindsay's shoes?
I beaded Lindsay's prom shoes, yes.
Whose shoes did I bead?
You beaded Hillary's wedding ballets.
No, but I beaded a pair of shoes that were hard, that I had to use a hemostat on.
You did her ballet shoes, too.
No, I know, but now I can't remember what shoes those were.
Well, I don't know.
Because you did Lindsay's, because I'm like, they weren't Lindsay's shoes.
No, they weren't.
Yeah. So what Mom and I were talking about, and this was the perfect era for beading shoes, like the 90s, when you had, or the early 2000s, when you had these heels with these kind of like wide straps over the top of the foot, they were perfect for putting fabric on, weren't they?
Right. I put a lot of fabric on a lot of shoes.
And like kind of the clunky heel of that time period too. Perfect for covering with fabric. It was a wonderful time.
Well, shoes are easy to cover.
They
if
are.
anybody ever wants to try it, they're easy to cover.
But so I was beading, and like I said, now I can't remember what the heck pair of shoes I was beading.
Maybe it will come to you.
I don't know.
That's another thing that we use in beading, you know, is those, I think they look like little oyster dishes, the beading dishes with the little, sections in them.
Right, yeah, in beading.
And then what do we keep them in?
A gun
case. Right, because the foam holds it down.
Okay, so like number 2 or 3, whatever we're on here. Yeah, gun case for beading. And I used to carry one of these around. We were way into beading.
I'm still into it.
But like we were into it a lot
I
for
think
a while
what happened is I really wanted to know how to do it. No one was really doing it. And I had to do and at the time, the only place I could find where people were beading was like what the American Indians were doing.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Like there was people weren't beading on quilts and beading on by hand. I mean, or I guess what I'm saying is there was no literature about it.
Yeah, it was hard to find.
So I was trying to figure out what threads to use and what needles to use and
we used
what
to
kind
sell
of beads.
Or you sold beads like a long time ago at the shop.
And the accessories, right. And then all of a sudden, here's what happens, small shop, you're selling beads, you're selling the implements or the
tools,
associated tools and notions to do it. And then all of a sudden something catches on and Walmart's selling it, so you can't sell it for the same price Walmart does. So
so these gun cases, they have foam in them, and they don't have like a cutout for the gun. They're just straight foam.
Well, and some don't.
The ones we were using. And so we have these beading dishes, and you could just leave your beads
in that little dish.
And then you shut your foam gun case.
Right.
And
I would put a piece of cotton
organdy over it,
and a lot of times that's what I would put my needles in that I had threaded too.
So then it would hold all the beads in place. You could pick it up and go with it. And I remember being way into it for a while, like doing lots and lots of beading. That I don't do quite as often anymore.
Well, if you remember your sister's wedding, the entire thing was beaded.
Tons of beading.
Right.
So yeah, gun cases are really nice. What else?
Well, if we're in the medical theme,
medical gun.
Okay,
whatever.
I don't know how this got started, but I got started with an IV pole.
I
think I got it from, I worked in a pharmacy, and I think I wound up bringing one home. When I say a pharmacy, it was a pharmacy, and we, as a nurse, I did, I worked in this pharmacy as the person that went out and basically peddled the drugs to the nursing homes and all the places, and I did, in-service teaching and things like that. And they had this sort of lame IV pole left over. And I brought it home, and it was wonderful because I could hang something on it and move it around. And
you could just wheel around the dress, whatever. You can adjust the height.
And I was working with a bunch of boas one time, and I had the boas all over the IV pole.
The IV pole has guest starred in some of my live broadcasts.
That's right.
And everybody's like, "Is that an IV pole?"
Yes,
and they're like, "That is genius." So we've got one. We got 2 IV poles, right? And
we better have 3.
We have 3. I'm trying to look around and count them.
I think there's one at the shop and 2 here.
Yeah, so we've got
because what happened was Donna ordered me IV poles when I made her daughter's wedding dress. That was her gift to me.
She ordered so you can hang your stuff on there. You can adjust the height. It can roll around really easily. It's almost like it's a clothing rack.
Well, except it's not. The clothing rack often leaves the dress or the garment inaccessible to you because it's sideways and not where the IV pole and you can make it any height. So if it's a long garment, a lot of wedding dresses got bustled off of IV poles.
Yeah, so the IV pole, if you don't know what one looks like, if you've never watched like a medical show or something, it goes straight up and it has these 2 little arms kind of coming off the top.
2 little hooks.
So you don't have, like Mom said, like on a clothing rack, you've got the the legs of the rack kind of around the clothing, whereas this leaves one side of the dress or the skirt or the pants or whatever exposed, and it's really nice.
On wheels.
Yeah, and it's on wheels, and it's on a nice steady base.
Right.
Even though you do have to be careful when you put a really heavy dress on the
high people. You can't overload one side or the other.
It can tip over, so that's nice. Now, other things you use for hanging, you have these big old hooks in the ceiling here.
Right. I call that a bicycle hook because that's what you would put in your garage if you hung your bicycle up.
So if you hang your bike up in your garage, you've got this like metal hook that's encased in like a plastic coating.
It's like rubberized or plastic or something on it.
So you can hang your bike there, but Mom hangs, clothing.
Right. A lot of times, again, big garments like wedding dresses or gowns or something where I'm working on the hem or the back or something like that.
And then
or cutting the hem of a tulle dress because you need it to be level. And I would cut it eye level.
And you also, when you cut a dress on the bias or a skirt on the bias that hang like overnight,
right.
So it's nice to let it hang not like up against a door.
Right. It's really
nice
to have it hanging freely.
Right. Before we take our break, I think one last funny thing that we've used for rolls of like stabilizer is a wine rack.
That's right.
Or a shoe. That was like a shoe
We've had
organizer.
A shoe rack, a shoe organizer, wine rack. We've used the over-the-door shoe things. Right. Yeah.
But the wine rack really can make your stabilizer situation look very festive. And it's that we had like a metal one, you know, that
it was like an accordion.
Yeah, and it looked really good. I loved that. So if you got old wine rack around, that's what you can use it for, okay?
That's right.
All right, so let's take a little break, and then we'll be back to talk about more non-traditional sewing implements. All right, Mom, we're big thread sticklers, aren't we?
Yes, thread snobs, I would call us.
I wrote a blog post a couple years ago that said, don't put crappy thread in your sewing machine or your serger, and I felt really brave, but that I was using the word crappy online.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we are very particular about our sergers as well.
Absolutely.
So it would only seem natural that we're particular about our serger thread.
Absolutely.
So we carry the Madeira Aerolock serger thread
on our
website.
It's a 2-ply polyester. It has a minimum amount of binding agent which is the glue that they hold all these fibers with, and it has a long fibered thread, so you have less glue and less fuzz going through your machine and winding up in your project.
Absolutely. So it keeps your nice expensive serger cleaner longer, keeps your project intact longer,
and looking very pristine, might I add.
Absolutely. And it comes in 48 colors.
Right.
So take your pick. And normally it is $5.99 for a 2,300 meter spool. And if you go to sewhere.com/serger thread, you'll see all 48 colors of Madeira Aerolock serger thread. And you can use the code SERGE, SERGE, at checkout for 20% off your purchase of Madeira Aerolock serger thread.
So long and so happy.
Sewing out loud. And we're back. Are you writing down some more?
Well,
Get some more ideas? I've got a few.
Okay,
go ahead.
I have sewed so long that I've actually used to use things that were non-sewing that don't even exist anymore. Like a little film canister for 35 millimeter, right?
Yeah.
For a 35 millimeter little can of film, you had it, right? And so it was what, 1.5 inches high and like 1 inch round or whatever. Like it was a little cylinder and it had a top on it. And that was my sharps container.
No, kids don't even know what film canisters are.
That was my kind of like a pill bottle almost, only shorter, I guess.
And I know that film is still used by some people today, of course, but not in the ways that it used to be used. No one comes home from family vacation is like
film canisters. That's right.
Drugstore to get it developed. No, everybody's sharing stuff on their phone, right?
But that was my sharps container for my machine needles. That when they, were dead or bad or whatever.
Absolutely. Now, the one thing I have on here that somebody might be like, wow, that's not very special, is a hammer. Okay.
Oh. Well, but there's all kinds of hammers.
Yeah, there are all kinds of hammers. And I think that if you don't have a hammer in your sewing room, you need one for your sewing room. So you might be like, well, yeah, I got a hammer. But, if it's got a bunch of crap all over it, maybe you don't want to use it on those jeans that you're working on or on that beaded fabric.
That's right.
If people don't know what I'm talking about, go back, listen to the podcast about how to sew on beaded fabric.
Well, and the one kind of hammer that I like that we have is a hammer that has shot in the head of it. So that's the weight of it. And, it's a mallet, basically. So mallets are nice.
There's this one hammer that our tech used to use that was like, what was that? It was like plastic. It was like a mallet.
That's what my mallet is with the shot hand. Right, with the shot in the head of it.
Is that no, not that one?
Oh, not just the mallet. Yeah, the plastic.
It's clear. Yeah, it's like a plastic mallet, and it's nice and gentle.
We still have those. Yes.
Yeah, yet strong enough. So don't limit yourself.
Yeah, I guess if I went over and looked at my toolbox right now, I would find like 4 or 5 hammers.
Oh, different hammers.
And that doesn't count the hammers I have like on top of the counters.
And when people are encountering thicknesses in jeans or bag sewing, you should really consider hammering
down
it. Just a couple times can make such a huge difference.
And that's why I like a mallet, though, too.
Yeah, bigger.
Versus the big metal. You have, first of all, you have a better surface area.
Right.
And it's flatter.
So the mallet allows you to go along the whole seam and not be so focused. And it doesn't take much.
Right.
You don't want to overdo it and flatten out your whatever too much, but
you don't want to smush it.
Yeah, you don't want to distort whatever you're doing. Now, I have PVC pipe on here. I'm going to let you take that away.
Well, the one thing that I've really used PVC pipe for is used it as a turning tool with huge things that like the lion's tail for the Lion and the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
Okay, so I use the broom handle and a PVC pipe as a turning tool. So if nobody can figure that out, I guess we can make a video on that someday.
If you have the Turn It All toolkit and we sell that online actually, the Turn It All uses. It's got like 3 different sizes of tubes and rods, basically, that you can use. But you need a really, really, really big one for the gigantic lion's tail from the Wizard of Oz. And so, we have that big PVC pipe and the dowel rod. And then we made a little tube so we can show it off.
That's right.
A little tube of fabric so people can understand what the hell we're talking about with that. Okay.
Well, another thing we have, and this goes back to the beads, and I meant to say it and I skipped, is the tackle boxes.
Oh, yeah.
And, that piece, we need to put...
Hey, tell everybody how you're a criminal. Tell them your klepto story.
Am I a criminal? I don't remember being a criminal.
I'll tell them. So one time...
You might be lying, because I don't remember
it's real. It's real. Yeah, so it used to be that tackle boxes, they were in the fishing section, and there were no,
Right.
It was not, so it's more common now.
They weren't in the craft section.
They weren't in the craft section. And now
they were truly fishing tackle boxes.
No, you told me the story where you were at Walmart one time and you got your special tackle box for the show choir emergency kit. And I remember this thing, it rolled. But you wanted to see if a certain other tackle box would fit inside it. And then you told me that you accidentally bought and you only got charged for the big tackle box.
I didn't remember that.
You probably stole a 95-cent tackle box or something.
It's probably 59 cents.
Yeah.
Well, if your dad built me a set of shelving for my tackle boxes, and maybe we should use that as our cover.
That's a really good one. So Mom has all these tackle boxes for the beads, and they're just the one-tiered, tackle boxes with little sections. And so my dad made her a bead cabinet, and it's just it sort of looks like a bookshelf.
Right. It's a wooden column.
Yeah, wooden column that has all these little shelves in it, and all the beads go in there. Mom's got them labeled, and it's on wheels.
It's on casters.
You want, our big thing about if you ask us how you want your sewing room to be or what tips we have for organization.
You want it portable. You want it to move.
Mobile,
you want it mobile. Right. You never want, there's very few fixtures that you want stuck where, Now, we do have ceiling hooks all over the place because sometimes we move stuff around and then we had to put in a new
That's
ceiling
right.
hook.
Well, the only thing in our sewing room right now that's totally stationary is this cutting table, really.
Well, it can still be moved.
Yeah, it can still be moved. It's not built in.
No, it's not built in, and we do not have built-in counters.
No, we don't have built-in counters. Now, some of these file cabinets can't roll, really.
Right.
But they can be moved because you never know.
Well, when I say mobile, I mean... Don't build it into the wall.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I have built in before in a room when I had a more limited space was I did build shelving into my closet. And it was a bedroom closet with a double door, and I took the doors off. I used them as tabletops, and I left the doors off the closet and shelved it.
Well, I think it's different to put shelves in a closet.
Right. But what I'm saying is I made it accessible.
Yeah, because,
I didn't want those doors closing it off all the time.
If you put shelves in a closet, that's one thing. But if you take up a wall where, maybe you want that to be like a design wall, or
you just don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
we have, we're limited with vertical space.
We are,
because we have like a dormer side, on our studio, so that makes a difference. But anyway, so tackle boxes. We all know that. You all know those are good.
Absolutely.
The other thing I think that Mallory might not know that I've used before is a spoon. And I've used a spoon.
Did you dig someone's heart out with it?
I cut your heart. I cut somebody's
heart out with a spoon. There you go.
But I've used a spoon to guide a needle and bring it back up. That shape.
That's awesome.
That shape will help you. And I usually keep like a flat, what we call butter knife or table knife. I never know what I might use it for, but I might use it.
Does your spoon almost act, well, I don't know. Would it act kind of like a darning egg for you sometimes?
Yes, very similar to that. Or if you're using something, you're trying to sew on the surface, there's something and you can't get to the back of it.
Yeah, you got to come back up
right
away.
You're trying to come back up and you can use that spoon.
Darning eggs are something that I feel like I could collect. Like if people, don't you think people made beautiful ones that were
everything used to be right,
like
artisanal
or whatever.
Artisanal.
I would
right.
I would
well,
collect
thimbles
those.
were the same way. Needle cases.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, when I have one last contribution to this.
Yeah.
But if you got more, we can keep going. I got paintbrush.
Well, or makeup brushes.
Yes.
Any kind of brush, right.
Makeup brushes, and we really like to use those, a clean one that's not been used for paint or makeup, to clean out our sewing machines.
So you put the vacuum there, and you're sort of whisking out the dirt.
I guess vacuum, too.
That little brush that comes with your machine, it's pretty useless.
Yeah, I always say that to people.
The other thing that I have is, that we have in here we have old spice racks.
Yes.
Where the spice bottles were held onto the little racks, and we've taken maybe the bottles off, and we have other things stuck in those,
like
thread,
film canisters.
Film canisters. Well, again, medication bottles, things like that work, of course.
Yeah, pill bottles are great.
Yeah.
Pill bottles are great. No, you can use...
low-tack tape. Everybody knows about low-tack tape.
That's the one thing I have written down here.
There's your painter's tape.
Yeah, painter's tape can be used for so many things. Once again...
Now, they will sell it to you in a sewing store, and it might have like hash marks on it, sort of looks like you can measure with it or something like that. And it'll be very, very expensive, and you can buy that if you'd like, or you can go to the paint department and buy painter's tape.
Yeah, and so what painter's tape does is, it's like Mom said, low-tack tape, so it doesn't get too sticky. It's not permanent, right?
Well, and I guess what I would like to add here is, I know people that use masking tape for things in there. Be real careful. Masking tape is not really meant to come off as easily.
Yeah.
So you can put it on, if you put it on your fabric or you put it on something, it will leave adhesive behind.
That's a really good
point. And the reason to use the low tack tape is it doesn't leave the adhesive behind.
Yeah, if you want to put a special mark.
Cellophane tape, all those other tapes, because they're not low tack tapes, will leave adhesive behind. So you're trying not to leave adhesive behind.
Right. You don't want to, those other tapes are trying to actually be tape, right?
That's, the low tack tape's another thing I keep in my kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
I use it all the time.
And the low tack tape, we use it on fabric and on our machines and cutting tables to mark things.
You can use it on the surface of your machine and not worry about it, leaving that adhesive behind, and then you're trying to get it off.
And if you ever have a fabric that's really hard to figure out which is the right side or the side you've chosen to use, I just put
I label it.
A piece of painter's tape on, what is going to be my fashion side. I don't even write anything on it, really.
No, I don't either. I just know it's on the right side.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, now, I may write something on it.
Sure.
If I have, say, a right front and a left front, and they're not like symmetrical,
it's hard to tell what's
something,
going on.
something, and I might put right front, left front, especially if, when you turn them, you can't tell. But the other thing is, if I'm sewing more than one garment, say I'm sewing one for you and one for me, and it's a costume, and they're exactly the same, so I might have an M on all your pieces, and I might have a Z on all my pieces, so that I don't sew my top to your bottom or something like that.
Absolutely. No, and
it's been done.
Mom probably passed this on to me big time, because I'm a huge proponent of writing all over your sewing projects.
That's right.
Make sure to label,
right,
whether permanently or temporarily. When we're making the jeans and we use that waxy pencil, I'm like, write in huge letters that this is the right front, and this, and I say, it's like writing yourself a love note on your patterns.
That's the other thing from the hunting, fishing department, or the whatever I just thought of, is shot. And if people don't know what shot is, it's the stuff you put in your shotgun.
Yeah.
And they're little heavy metal pellets. So if you have something like your stuffing, or you want to weight, like a pincushion, you don't fill it all the way with the shot, but you put it in the bottom because it's going to dull your needles.
Right.
And then, but it could be used like in part of that pincushion to weight it down.
Or to act as a weight for things. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, there are lots of other things. We could probably maybe do another episode once we get even more inspired to talk about all the stuff that we use. But does that kind of do it for you, Mom, in terms of...
I don't know. Should we... Are you taking a last look to see if there's anything?
I'm gazing around the studio,
Right.
Well, if you don't have anything else
I guess the other thing is templates for circles. You find them in your kitchen cabinet, probably.
Plates, coffee cans, all that kind of stuff.
Jars,
absolutely.
Cans, whatever.
Well, we'd love to hear about non-sewing items that you use for sewing. You can tag us in a photo if you'd like.
I'll bet you anything. A lot of people are going to tell us what they use for pattern weights.
Yes. So we're Zede Sewing Studio on Instagram. You can get a hold of me via email, Mallory@sewhere.com, and we're on Facebook as well in the Self-Sewn Wardrobe group. So we'll see you all at various places around the interwebs, and thanks for listening.
So long and so happy.
Thanks for listening to Sewing Out Loud. For even more expert sewing advice, visit sewhere.com.